Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about best way to learn Chinese or Chinese characters and kanji. Right, so anything this is like something that's like topic that a lot of people talk about, like what's the best way to learn kanji? And I think the way people learn kanji in Chinese characters like mostly like are just so inefficient. And as someone who knows like 3,000 kanji characters already, this is basically how I learned Chinese character, like 3,000 kanji characters really fast. So if you guys don't know, like 3,000 characters is like surpasses a typical high school level because like, up to high school, you learn 2,000 of the Joyo kanji, right? Which is the most common kanji. But then the extra 1,000 kanji after that are typically like literary words, like very like you would have to have like a high level of literary vocabulary to cover the extra 1,000, right? So basically, I went from like kindergarten level of literacy to like college level literacy within like basically 2 years. So that's a lot. Like that's like dramatic, right? That's like literally like you go from kindergarten to college level literacy in like 2 years. That's kind of crazy, especially for a language like Japanese. But it's because of the way I learned these characters. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, especially when they're learning Chinese or Japanese, like they learn these characters in isolation. They're like, okay, this character, this means something like this, and it has this reading. And with Chinese is a little bit easier because at least one character in Chinese only has one reading, right? Most of the time, so you can guess the pronunciation based on just the characters. In Japanese, it's harder. Reason why is because in Japanese, one character, right, can have like 5 different readings depending on the context of the word, right? So like like the word for iku, which means to go, can also mean okonao, or it can mean like ko, like kodo has like that word. So there's unyomi and kunyomi, which are like two separate like systems, right? Which is like Chinese readings, and then there's the Japanese reading. So it's like, so I think Japanese kanji is actually hard to learn because it's like you have to learn multiple readings within the same kanji, and this will be like literally seem impossible to learn, right? If you try to learn these in isolation. So the way to actually learn these characters is not to actually learn them in isolation. You have to learn them in the context of words. So you take a word in Japanese, and you just ignore what character it's like. You don't try to learn the characters in isolation. You just learn the word. Like you need to basically ignore the individual characters and just only learn the word in context. So for example, if you were to learn the word for kodo, right? If I had to look up the word, like you just basically learn the word. You just learn the word. You don't mess around with like the individual characters. You just learn the word, right? And that'll make it easier for you to stick, right? What's another like common word that uses like 2 characters? Shokuji, right? Look at shokuji. Like, don't think about, oh, this is like the first kanji is about eating, like taberu, and the other one is koto, right? Like just don't worry about that. Just think about, okay, this word is shokuji, and it looks like this, right? So at first, it was like super blurry, right? The words, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't able to clearly distinguish the different characters in Japanese. Like it was only until I learned like a bunch of words that I ended up recognizing, oh, this character is also used in this word, and in this character is also used in here. So it's only later after I learned like a bunch of words that like I was able to distinguish all the individual characters. But when I was learning like for the very beginning, I was unable to do that, right? I would have to basically only rely on photographic memory of a word to be able to read a word. But it's actually really easy to do. Like you can actually learn these words in isolation. But you have to learn the kanji in the context of words. Same with Chinese. Like if you learn a Chinese word, like don't learn just the individual character. Like learn it in the context of a word. So you're just learning words, not characters. But you learn the characters through the words, right? This is the best way to do it, guys. Okay, and the best way to basically increase your literacy in these languages would just to be to read a lot. So if you just read a lot of manga, a lot of light novels, you're gonna come across all these words, right? And you're just learning the words. You don't care about the characters. You only learn a bunch of words, and then from that you can extract like the kanji later. Like for me, like I know a lot of rare kanji in Japanese, but that's only because I know a lot of rare words. I learned the rare kanji through rare words, so I am only aware of the kanji or the character because of a rare word I learned. So like, I didn't learn these rare characters in isolation. I just learned them through rare words in Japanese, right? And this is why my kanji is like 3,000, right? It's because of that. because I just focused on learning the word and I learned the kanji as I learned the word. So basically, you're simultaneously learning like the kanji and the word, but you just only focus on the word, right? When you keep it like this, it's gonna be very easy for you to eventually distinguish the characters later. Because I couldn't even tell the difference between like, kanji that looks similar. Like for example, like midori in Japanese looks similar as like like en, like for endan like the word for en and the word for midori. These characters look so similar, but I didn't really care. I just only worried about the word. Like okay, so this word in this if the word endan, it means this. Okay, this is like marriage. Like endan means marriage, right? And then midori in this context, it looks like this, or like ryokcha, right? So I'll learn words in context, right? And that's the best way to basically learn the characters, is to just learn a bunch of words, right? What I recommend doing is like if you're gonna do Anki, you basically put the word in front, right, and the reading on the back. So that way you learn how to read the words. But this is like the best way to actually learn these characters. Because people say these characters are hard to learn, but they're actually not, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Because in the beginning it may seem hard because like they might look like a bunch of squiggles, which they kind of did in the beginning. But then over time, like I said, like the more words you learn, you'll be able to very clearly see the characters, like over time, right? And this is where like your eyes become adjusted and you develop photographic memory of all the characters. And I think it actually becomes easier to learn words in Japanese than it is to learn words in English or like any language that uses the alphabet, right? Because the Latin the alphabet, right, is there's no photographic memory like as distinct as like characters. Because if you have like a bunch of characters that make up a word and you already know the characters, it becomes very easy to learn new words because like you already know the character because this one character is in like 100 words you already know. So like it'll be very easy to learn the word because you already know this character. So it's like a double, like it's like a spider web in your head of like different variations of how this character is used. So just like it's a lot easier than learning like a new word in English that you don't know because it's just a bunch of just a bunch of letters, but the letters don't look as distinct as like the characters. So there's less that's why for me, like when I try to Anki French or if I have to learn like French, or for example, like it's very hard for me to memorize French words because it's like it's only alphabet, but I can easily Anki like Japanese words because the words look distinct because of the characters. So like there's a so it's harder to learn the characters at first, but once you learn all the characters, it becomes very easy to learn new words. So yeah, guys, this is how I basically learn Japanese characters, because if you do like this, it becomes very easy. So yeah, guys, but this is basically how you do it, and you should be like really good within a couple years.